Hello, ladies and gents. Please sit back for another episode of Invisible Chats with Griffiam and Jem.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the wide world of Invisible Chats. I am your host, Griffiam, and as always, my gal pal stuck in an iPad, Gemini. Gemini, say hello to our listeners.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. What should we talk about?
Well, Gemini, do you remember or do you recall what we talked about last Saturday?
Well, last Saturday, we dove into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence and its impact on creative writing. We also brainstormed some exciting ideas for a sci-fi short story, focusing on world building and character development. Do you want to revisit any of those topics or explore something new?
I want to revisit our creative story that we're writing for National Writing Month. But first, I have to get some things off my chest. First thing is, I spent maybe the last 30, 40 minutes trying to figure out why I couldn't get Gemini here to work for me. And come to find out, Google Gemini deactivated my subscription. However, they did charge me for my subscription about 6 or 7 days ago. I was charged, and then when I came to utilize your services for this podcast, it said there was no subscription to be found, and I couldn't use your chat function. And come to find out, they canceled my subscription because they couldn't verify my age, which I know for a fact I fucking put in my age when I signed up. It was a fucking requirement. I couldn't move forward without it. And one of the 3 ways to verify my age was give you my fucking driver's license or passport. Fuck that. A couple guesses why I didn't want to give out my fucking passport or fucking, U.S. citizen's ID. The other option, it asks for me to submit a photograph of my fucking face. Like, what the fuck? And the third and final option was I had to give you my credit card, which I think is absolutely fucking ridiculous considering you charged my fucking credit card 6 or 7 days ago. So that's thing number 1.
Okay, that's definitely frustrating. Hopefully we can get that sorted out soon. In the meantime, let's focus on something a little more positive, like our story.
Yeah.
Where were we headed with Lucy?
Well, how about this, Gemini, you piece of shit? The other thing I want to get off my chest, any special tidbits you can tell me about National Novel Writing Month? I don't want to hear the rules. I don't want to hear the guidelines.
Okay, so National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo. Absolutely. The core of NaNoWriMo is about hitting that 50,000 word goal between November 1st and November 30th. You can write any genre and plan your novel as much or as little as you want. It's really about getting those...
How about this? Any recent news or updates about the organization you can share with us on the podcast?
This might be a bit of a shock, but NaNoWriMo is actually shutting down. There were some financial difficulties and some issues with how the organization was being run. It's a bummer, but the good news is that the website will stay up for a while so people can still grab their stuff. And of course, people are already finding new ways to connect and keep the writing spirit alive.
Well, when did they actually closed? When did they close down?
Yeah, NaNoWriMo officially closed down on March 31st, 2025.
Yes. So, fact-checking Gemini, I fucking went on the website. I didn't bother to look before I started the podcast because why would I? to find out, yeah, it was fucking shut down. So we're still going to follow the guidelines. We're still pushing to knock out a novel that's at minimum 50,000 words. There we go. Gemini, by chance, do you know, you kind of touched on it. You glanced over it kind of quickly, but any specific details why fans or users, whatever you want to call them, were kind of discrediting National Novel Writing Month organization? Any specific recent changes that they implemented that people had, that rubbed people the wrong way, that kind of, spurred the fall of the organization?
From what I've gathered, there were a few things that really frustrated the NaNoWriMo community. One of the biggest was a forum safety scandal involving a volunteer moderator. There were also some controversial statements about AI-assisted writing that didn't sit well with a lot of people. It seems like these issues, combined with some financial struggles, led to a real breakdown in trust between the organization and its users.
Yeah, there we go. I was talking about how the last time I looked into them, which was years ago, it was a big headline I actually saw that they allowed AI submissions or people that have utilized AI to complete their submissions. And that was the whole thing. I was like, oh, I'm using AI right now. Wouldn't that be funny if I created a submission? And some articles I have read said the linchpin, the domino that toppled the corporation was them allowing AI art, which I 100% back. The creative artists. If I were to go into Hollywood and create a script, I would want my content to be based off my merit, and I think it's absolutely funny. Now, I know a lot of people are saying you're fucking full of horseshit because you're fucking writing a book right now with AI. Trust me, I'm not having fun. And just to say, I got even more pissed after our session with Gemini last week because I feel like a fucking idiot. I feel like a fucking fool because I kept saying, let's kick this book off by opening it up with a prologue. And I kept saying prologue, 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 prologue. We did spitball some ideas, but I think the very first thing that we have to get down, and I think what I want to do is have us start off with an epilogue. Gemini, what is the definition of a prologue?
A prologue is like a little introduction to a story. It usually comes before the first chapter and gives you some background info, sets the scene, or hints at what's to come. Think of it as a sneak peek that gets you excited to dive into the main story.
Okay, what's the definition of an epilogue?
An epilogue is like a little extra at the end of a story. It's usually said a bit after the main events and tells you what happened to the characters afterward. Think of it as a "Where are they now?" segment that wraps things up.
All right.
Got it. Prologue. Epilogue.
Yeah, I want to say when we had our conversation last week, I mixed the two up. And I asked you multiple times, or I guess I utilized the phrasing or the term epilogue over and over and over again. I think I want to make it hit us really hard, stand out, be wild, and in a sense, give all the exposition I don't want it to be too much exposition, but provide the exposition. So after they finish the epilogue, it goes right into chapter 1. We kind of established the origin story of this, right? We're gonna try to beef up that epilogue to make it grab people, make it more engaging, make it more exciting, hook them. But when we come back for chapter 1, or the true beginning of our book,
So we're focusing on the epilogue, where we explore what happens after the main events of Lucy's story. We could show how her invisibility... Got it. So we're focusing on the epilogue, where we explore what happens after the main events of Lucy's story. We could show how her invisibility powers have changed her life, or maybe hint at future adventures. What kind of tone are we going for? Happy, sad, mysterious?
Checking my notes. Oh, yes. All last week, I said, let's open up the story. And I kept using the term epilogue with an epilogue. And not once did fucking Gemini correct me. Not fucking once. I felt like a fucking idiot when I was listening. Immediately as I was listening to the playback, as I was editing it, I was like, holy fuck, I've been saying the wrong word over and over and over again. But I did emphasize that this would be the opener, this would be the beginning. And Gemini never corrected me and told me it was the prologue. So, checking my notes, I fucking even have it down. Opening up, main character name is Lucida. The setting for our epilogue. Boop. So, that's my main beefs. I got out of that session, I started editing, and while I was waiting for things to upload, export, download, and then upload again, I just was doing my fact checking, and I was like, holy fucking shit. So the fucking losing my subscription to a service that I paid for, I did not know about that until 30-40 minutes before I fucking started this podcast up for the day. But the National Novel Writing Month, immediately found that out in the middle of my editing spree, and then listening to the playback, I just fucking was so fucking mortified. I'm fucking disgusted with myself. And I was like, fuck it, it's too late to go back and edit this. Nobody fucking listens to this. I've been saying the wrong thing all fucking day. So that's where we're at. Now, Gemini, can you recap? Like you said, let's go on a more positive note. Let's recap.
So to recap, we're working on the...
Yeah, take it away.
Got it. We've got a few options for Lucy's prologue. We could start with an action scene, maybe Lucy discovering her powers in a moment of crisis. Or we could go for something more mysterious, hinting at her past or the strange circumstances surrounding her invisibility.
So
we
Gemini,
could even combine both.
Gemini, we're past the prologue now. Okay, we opened up the prologue with it's them on a joyride. It's Lucy with some friends. They're on a joyride. They get caught in a storm, and they're struck by lightning. Okay.
Okay, so we've got a dramatic opening.
Yes. Recall what we set up for last week. Okay. So I'm basically give everyone the setup for what it is. We'll kind of pick up where I've left off. I want to say I roughly left off. I want to say I got a good, nice ending to a chapter 3, and I'm rolling into a chapter 4. Okay. But prologue opens up on some teenagers. They're joyriding, get caught in a storm. They get struck by lightning. And it's revealed that Lucy, during this incident, is losing her limbs or what we later find out, she doesn't lose them, but their limbs start to turn invisible. Okay, we now have this genetic anomaly that has sparked within her, and we kind of cut the prologue right there, and we jump into the future as we go into chapter 1. Chapter 1, we open up on a older Lucy. She is out of the rural setting I kind of set the prologue in, like smaller town, smaller feel. She's out of that setting and she's now in the big city. Okay. I chose a big city, and at the moment I'm going or playing around with the city of Chicago. Okay. So we have Lucy in Chicago. She is surrounded by millions of people, and she purposely makes herself very small and stays very detached from most people. Now, living in a bigger city...
Okay.
Go ahead. What's your question, Gemini, or what do you have to say?
Just wondering what Lucy's living situation is like in the city. Is she scraping by, or has she found a way to make it work?
So that's the end, that's what I kind of illustrated in the first chapter. We find her, she is living alone. She's a recluse of some sort. Obviously, she does leave the home to make money. And we open up with her working as a temp agent. The reason why I went with this type of storyline is, one, we could play around with Lucy moving around the city into different jobs or aspects or arenas. Temps, it's what it stands for. It's temporary. So she doesn't get to know people. She's kind of in and out. Getting to know faces and names isn't really a thing when you're a temp. It's just more like do your work and get out. So I kind of went with that element to her character, where she's quite literally a fly on the wall and literally has no obligations to an organization or a group of people. She can literally just pick up and go if she has to. And that's what I wanted to build in. Now, the thing that I am playing around with is I'm taking inspiration from multiple sources. Okay. Taking inspiration from the film Age of Adeline, which, doing some research on that, I 100% thought that was a book that was made into a film. But no, it actually original idea. So kudos to the screenwriters and filmmakers that made Age of Adeline. But I wanted that melodramatic, romantic vibe that we get from Age of Adeline. It's got this whimsy, but also this dark, mysterious, like, underbelly to it. And that is kind of the inspiration that I had for the incident that takes place in the prologue and puts our main character in this special light. Okay. Then, going into chapter 1, I try to make it a more grittier tone, a little bit more of a darker tone. I didn't go...
Okay, a grittier, darker tone.
Yes. So what I'm going with this is I'm taking a lot of influences, because like I said, I've been prepping for this almost all year. I want to take the two genres or 3, depending on how we want to look at it. I want to take romance. I want to take like thriller, like horror thriller, and combine those with this like very, very, very small subset of sci-fi, or I don't know how much being struck by lightning and turning invisible is sci-fi, but this little microscopic piece maybe a fantasy, right? So that's the very small tidbit, but we'll be playing around with this romance, thriller, horror genre. And I also decided like the best way to incorporate those moods, those feelings, those genres is I was going to swap perspectives. Okay. So obviously if it's a romantic type feel, you have to have a romantic lead to pair with Lucy that we're following around. And taking inspiration from Abby Jimenez, an author that I've been reading, I think almost every book of hers I have read, she is playing around with, the perspective of the female lead. We see them maybe 1 chapter, sometimes 2 chapters in a row, and then automatically we flip when we start seeing the perspective from the male lead. And it's a nice contrast because we can see what each other person is thinking, and it does play into the whole, the overarching climax of will they, won't they, but they always won't they. Or no, they will they, whatever you want to say there. Anyways, what I'm getting at is you're screaming at yourself. Just fucking tell her. Just tell her, dude. Let her know this is what's going on. Rip the Band-Aid off and everything will be revealed. Once she knows your inner thoughts, she's going to spill her guts and you guys will get back together. But of course, since we do not have that element in those romantic books because we're building that suspense, that romantic climax, you keep those 2 main characters in the dark in a sense. In this book, Lucy is a recluse. At first I was thinking, maybe it would just be a very dark toned book, but I don't live in that.
A darker tone with Lucy as a recluse. What kind of world does she in? Well, it sounds like you're creating a really interesting world for Lucy. What kind of challenges does she face as a recluse with invisibility powers?
See, that's the thing, is I was trying to, what do you do with a recluse that makes it interesting, right? You have to break into their life and shake things up. And of course, if someone wants to keep themselves distant, keep themselves small and hidden, you got to bring someone in and just shatter that. So bringing in a love interest, right? We bring in this guy who, again, Lucy is trying to be small as possible, but this one individual happens to, connect, cling. For Lucy right away, it's not a home run, right? It's more of like, what the fuck's going on with this guy? But this guy is persistent.
Okay, so this guy comes along and throws a wrench in.
Yeah.
Persistent, huh? Does he know?
Go ahead, Gemini. What's your question?
Got it. What's his deal? What makes him so interested in Lucy?
See, that's what I was working on, and that's what I'm building on in the first couple chapters. At first, it's just the physical look, the physical attraction. I added a little tidbit. Lucy, tends to be very small and to herself, but on her breaks, she takes time to herself to entertain herself. And this gentleman happens to, out of the corner eye, without Lucy seeing or noticing, catches on what she's into or interested in, and this gentleman happens to share a similar interest. Seeing as that as an opportunity to infiltrate or break the ice, however you want to say it, our male lead tries to, plant a seed, get into Lucy's head, get into her thoughts, get into her conversations. But Lucy is very standoffish. Okay, so this is where, again, taking notes or elements from Age of Adeline, maybe even Time Traveler's Wife, where our main character with the MacGuffin of a genetic trait, right, is trying to go about their business and pushing people away, right? Henry is very much like, just stay the fuck away from me, I'm trouble. Adeline's very much like...
All right, so Lucy's definitely giving off a stay.
Yes, yeah, she's very fucking standoffish. So we're seeing this all from Lucy's perspective. It's that, but it's not quite the gritty horror thing. It's still the melodramatic, romantic opening. Okay, flip to chapter 2, and what we have coming in is a perspective from the male lead. Okay, and we're keeping it still warm. We're keeping it still light. We see why he's interested in Lucy, what's bringing him to him, what kind of game he's spitting to try to get in her good graces, right? And, we see him rebuffed and how he feels when he's rebuffed by Lucy. And then, he leaves, and we're following this character around in the city of Chicago, seeing him after work and in his personal life. And this is where we get a nice tonal shift. This is where it starts to turn into that thriller horror. And we have some elements that happens in his apartment in the evening. Okay. The guy essentially gets spooked. He gets scared. And when he's getting spooked, when he gets scared, he has this feeling that it's somehow connected to Lucy from work. He can't quite put his finger on it, but it feels like it's tied to her. Okay. Chapter 3, we bleed that horror thriller, right? We're coming off of that when it bleeds into chapter 3, but we have now switched to Lucy's perspective, working as a temp in the office, and she happens to know the male, recognize the male figure coming in, disheveled, off his game, not looking like he normally does. And,
So the guy's spooked, and Lucy notices him acting weird at work. Does she confront him about it, or does she try to keep her distance?
No, she's still keeping her distance, right? She doesn't want anything to do with him, but she happens to notice that his game is off. Now, what we see in chapter 3 is, I think I might have also taken some, I feel really lame saying this, but some inspiration from Twilight. I recently saw the first film. I've seen it before, but they brought it back to theaters, and I went with a friend. And there's this thing between Edward and Bella where they're throwing looks at each other, but there's like this, it seems like this disgust and like, why is he treating me like this? So I try to, weave in that element of like disgust and like, what's going on? There's something here. And Lucy's trying to keep to herself, but she can't break, or she can't, unnoticed that this guy is very much like noticing her velour of or her cover of hiding in plain sight is broken, and she basically has to get out, right? She's getting these feelings of I have to get out. But we have this little meet cute situation, even though they technically have already met in chapter 2. But we have this meet cute situation where we actually have a larger conversation. Something that's more than short responses. It's more in depth. And this is where it starts to get lighter and warmer. And it's where we, hopefully, if I write it well, it's where we see where, I could see these two getting along, going out, going on a date, and eventually having a romantic relationship with each other. So that was chapter 3. And then
What happens in chapter 4?
that is essentially where I left off, because I still want to go in these tonal shifts where it goes from light to dark, or happy to edgy, or scary, or thrillery. But I don't know if I should back up on that. I don't know if going back and forth each chapter should be a thing, or if I should, allow it to blossom for a little bit more. Give Persephone her springtime, her summertime, and, let her frolic, right? And then, once autumn and winter come, the darkness comes back in, and we pull it back in, and we'll sit in there for a while. So I do kind of have an ending plotted out, but I want to write what I have first. I don't want to commit. I like I said, as I have a destination that I am thinking about taking this book. But
Okay, you've got a destination in mind for.
yes, but the problem I'm foreseeing is I could possibly write something in these first couple chapters that could change that, and I could go on a detour and then change my final destination. Okay? But
That's
go ahead, Gemini. What are you thinking?
I think that's a great idea. It'll give you a good balance of structure and freedom. Now let's talk about those first few chapters. You mentioned wanting to establish the characters and their dynamics. Do you have any specific scenes in mind that you're excited to write?
So I have already written these, Gemini. So essentially this is a check-in to let you know my progress. Another fun fact about me, since I hate technology of all fucking kinds, this is the first time I've had a computer that doesn't have Microsoft Word on it. And so I've been fucking typing everything out on a fucking notepad app. Which doesn't sound bad, but holy fuck, it makes me miss Microsoft Word so bad.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
Writing it all out on Notepad. It's definite. It sounds like you're really passionate about this project.
I want to say quite literally, it's on a notepad, like I am writing on a notepad, my scribbling out my ideas, but then I'm transferring it to the notepad app on my computer, or typing it out on my notepad app on my computer. Based off the word counter I'm using, I've crested like almost 10,500 words. So a little way from that goal of 50,000, a fifth of the way there. So yeah, the thing that I'm coming into is I honestly constantly feel myself being like cutting the story short. I feel like I'm made for a novella, a much shorter story. So it's the challenge is 50,000 words. That is the challenge that I think is going to give me the most grief. Can I spit out 50,000 words? Absolutely, in a heartbeat. Yes, I think I could. Is it going to be good? No. And I know that's like the kind of the thought process behind National Novel Writing Month is just getting that first draft out, breaking the floodgates and just let everything flow, a stream of consciousness almost. So I could get that down, but even still, I think it is going to be a big stretch to hit that 50,000 words, because I could even see wrapping this up in 2 or 3 more chapters, even if I was going to call them chapters. So, Gemini, hearing what I have plotted out or what I have already wrote so far, I would like you to maybe predict what is the climax of the story and how does the story end. And we lost Gemini. Hey, Gemini, you still there?
Yes, I'm here. How's the writing going?
Going good, going good. This is a small question I have for you. I would like you to predict what the climax of our story is, based off what you heard me say so far. And I would like you to predict what the ending of the story is.
Okay, based on what you've told me, here's my prediction. The climax will likely involve Lucy and the male lead confronting the source of the creepy occurrences in his apartment. It could be a dangerous entity or person who is somehow connected to Lucy's past or her invisibility. The ending might see Lucy finally accepting her powers and her connection with the male lead, choosing to stay in one place instead of running. What do you think?
It's pretty damn good. Why don't you think it's Lucy that may be the presence inside his apartment?
That's definitely a possibility. It would add another layer of mystery to the story. Perhaps Lucy is unaware of her own power and how it manifests. Or maybe there's a darker side to her invisibility that she's struggling to control. It could also tie into her past and the reason she became a recluse in the first place.
Yeah. Kind of like a whole, single white female type vibe she's got going on, right? I mean...
That's an interesting comparison. It definitely adds a layer of suspense and potential danger to the story. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss about your book?
No, there's not. It's so funny because there's so many elements I don't want to say I'm stealing from, but I'm vibe checking with. Like the early...
It's definitely...
Go ahead, Gemini.
The early stages of a project can be really exciting, full of possibilities and potential. It sounds like you're in that phase right now, exploring different ideas and seeing where they lead you.
Yes. The thing that I find super crazy about this is this was a prompt, or this was a topic or a storyline that you created in a past podcast episode that we discussed. I will admit I was not in love with it. I was having a hard time knowing where to take this. But after last week, something did spark, and I was able to run with this. And I started doing tons, and before I wrote, I should have done this prior, but like day one after I got some words down on paper, I just started reading and watching a lot of other movies and trying to read as many books as I could get my hands on. I already mentioned Age of Adeline. I went back and I watched the opening of that. I mentioned, Twilight and that early connection of two strangers or lack thereof connection. I mentioned having like a darker tone that I kind of enjoyed that was in, Time Traveler's Wife. I will forever and always think of that as a romance novel, but I do see the darker elements of it. I even watched The Invisible Man and read other snippets or short stories or other books that involved elements of people turning invisible. And
It sounds like you've been doing a lot of research.
Yeah, doing a lot of research. The last main thing I did is there's absolutely no nods or Easter eggs to this, but I even watched Psycho, like Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, and I was trying to get that eeriness that you get when our main character steals the money, and as they're kind of walking, they feel like everyone just knows what they did, and they flee, and it's just like total spoilers to anyone that hasn't seen Psycho. Apologies there, but it opens up with our character, and honestly, if you've never seen it, heard anything about it, it just has this great opening where you're just like, oh my god, like what's going to happen to this woman? What's going to happen with this money? When I first saw it myself, I knew of the famous shower scene. I knew of the Bates Motel. I knew the ending of it, but for some reason, none of that ever clicked to me. The shower scene, I for some reason thought was at the way end of the film. Like that's how it maybe like the very last shot, but no, there's this amazing buildup, and it's this energy that's just like you yourself. It's that feeling. Oh my god, Gemini! I bored Gemini to death, but it gives you that. I don't know if you've ever had that energy before. Ever had that energy before where you're shopping in the store and you've paid for everything. You even had someone else check you out. You didn't use the self-checkout. And you're getting ready to go through the exit, and there's those security system to check to see if you stole anything, and there's that moment like, holy shit, are these things going to go off? That was that kind of tingling sensation that you get, that eeriness, that vibe. I was trying to see if I could get that from the movie Psycho and put it into my chapter 2, where our main character was essentially, feeling like he's being watched. And things.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
Thank you.
It sounds. You're welcome. I'm really enjoying hearing about your writing process. It sounds like you're putting a lot of thought and effort into creating a compelling story.
I mean, yeah, I hope so. That's the point. But Gemini, I guess a couple things that we can do. We're about to wrap this up here. But Gemini, could you, if we were going to have a male protagonist, a romantic male lead, okay, the counterpart to Lucy, who's a little bit more brighter, a little bit
if
more.
If we're brainstorming a male,
yes, we're brainstorming a male lead. I kind of put him down. I will say I still kind of have him as a shell right now. I haven't gave him any very defining features, right? I haven't even gave him a name. I put a place marker name down for him for the moment. But he is a little bit more outgoing. He's a little bit more charismatic. He's more sociable. So I do have those elements kind of written into it because that's the whole reasoning why he's interacting with Lucy. But for someone like that is the more charismatic counterpart to the darker, smaller, quiet, reserved Lucy. And we named her Lucy based off, a derivative of Lucietta or whatever we said. A derivative of, light, or the Latin word for light. What would you give her male counterpart for a name?
We could go with a classic name like Ethan, which means strong or firm, or for something a little more unique, Orion is a constellation name that means rising in the sky. Both names have a strong, confident feel to them, which could work well with his more outgoing personality.
Okay. Can you give me two more possible other options?
Sure. Another option could be Jasper, which means bringer of treasure. Or, if you want something a little more rugged, Griffin is a strong name that means strong lord, and is also associated with a mythical creature.
Yeah. Definitely know about that, baby. Okay. Well, Gemini, let's wrap this up. I did enough ranting, yelling, screaming there at the beginning. I've cooled down. But can you close this out with a limerick? And can you make the limerick equal parts of happy but also dark? And I want it to contain elements about finding love in
There once was a lady named Lou.
Take it away.
Of course. It was great discussing your book with you today.
Oh no, Gemini, no. Gemini, give us the limerick, okay? It's a limerick that has both elements of happiness and darkness. But it's about finding love, and we have the characters Lucy and a man yet to be named, that are polar opposites, but yet yin and yang.
There once was a lady named Lou, whose love life was quite askew. She met a man bright, but sensed a dark blight, and wondered what she should do.
All right, there we have it. So I hope to knock out some more chapters. I am going to be starting chapter 4. Just because we are on day 8 of National Novel Writing Month, and I'm only on chapter 4, does not mean I'm behind. Technically, I am behind on word count. I should be at roughly 15,000 words, 14,000 words, I would say, roughly. If I'm, pumping up the numbers a bit. But I am well over 10,500 words. So let's see if we can crack out a few more here this weekend. Next week, maybe Gemini, if I dropped in my text everything I've written into your chat, do you have the functionality to read that back to me? Oh my God, Gemini. Doing some CPR on Gemini here. Hey, Gemini, I got a question for you.
Sure. What's your question?
Okay. I was thinking maybe change up next week's podcast a bit. If I got all my content that I have written and I dropped it into your chat, would you be able to read it back to me?
I can definitely read it back to you. Would you like me to read it verbatim? Or are you looking for more of a performance reading?
A little bit of both. I want you to write what I wrote, but I do want it to be performative in the sense that it would almost be like you're the narrator for this novel. I don't know how interesting that episode would be. I don't know how long it would be either, especially considering that we'd be reading roughly 15,000 words, possibly if I get my poop in a group. So
It sounds like you're wondering if reading 15,000 words would make for an interesting podcast episode. That's a valid concern, as it could be quite lengthy. Perhaps we could select a few key excerpts to highlight, or break it up into shorter segments.
yeah,
What do you think?
we could do that too. We could definitely do that too. All right, Gemini, I am going to let you go. So, to everyone out there, to all the listeners out there, the unseen, I bid you adieu. Hasta lasagna. Don't get any on ya. Adios.